They tell you I was a monster. They've been telling that story for 3,000 years, and I suppose by now they've told it enough times that it feels like truth. But I was there, and I remember it differently. My name is Medusa, and before I was a warning, before I was a weapon, a cautionary tale, a face carved above doorways to frighten away evil, I was a girl who believed in something. I was a priestess of Athena. Do you understand what that meant? It meant I gave everything, my freedom, my future, my beauty, which people never let me forget I had. All of it laid at the feet of a goddess I genuinely loved. I wasn't coerced into that temple. I walked in willingly. I believed that devotion meant protection, that a goddess who stood for wisdom and justice would extend that wisdom and justice to those who served her. I was 17 years old, and I was wrong, but I didn't know that yet. People ask, when they're feeling generous, whether I was happy then. Yes, I think I was. I had purpose, I had community, I had a sense that my life was part of something larger than itself. The temple was cold in winter, and the rituals were demanding, and we slept on stone floors and woke before dawn, and still, yes, I was happy. That matters, I think, not because it makes what came next more tragic, but because it makes it more honest. I wasn't miserable waiting to be rescued. I wasn't lonely, counting down the days. I had chosen my life. And then when life was taken from me in a single night, inside the walls of the place I considered sacred, by a god who wanted something and saw no reason to ask. I won't describe what Poseidon did. You already know, or you can imagine. And there's nothing about saying it plainly that changes it or honors it or makes it easier to hold. What I will tell you is this. He left. That's the part no one lingers on. He came, he took what he wanted, and he left. Returned to his kingdom beneath the waves, presumably satisfied, presumably unbothered. The sea doesn't apologize for flooding your house. It simply recedes. And I was left in Athena's temple, on Athena's floor, waiting for something. Justice. Intervention. Acknowledgement that what had happened here, in this place, was an offense against everything the goddess claimed to stand for. What I got instead was her anger. Here is what the stories say. Athena punished Medusa for the desecration of her temple. Here is what the stories leave out. I was the temple. She couldn't touch Poseidon. He was her uncle, a god of equal standing, and the politics of Olympus don't bend for mortal grievances. Not even the grievances of those who spend their lives in service. So she did what powerful beings do when they cannot reach the source of their rage. She turned it on something smaller, something closer, something that couldn't fight back. The serpents came first. I remember the feeling. Not pain exactly, but wrongness, the sensation of your own body becoming unfamiliar. Then my skin. Then the slow, creeping understanding that when I looked at my hands, I was seeing something that had not existed in the world before that moment. I remember screaming. I remember the other priestesses running. I remember being alone in a way I had never been alone before. Not just without people, but fundamentally alone, in a body that no longer matched the life I had been living. Exile has a texture. It's not dramatic. It's not fire and weeping and cathartic collapse. It's quiet, relentless, grinding quiet. I found the caves on the coast. I learned what I could eat, what I couldn't, how to sleep on rock without losing your mind. I learned that serpents are warmer than they look. I learned the precise radius at which a human being registers that something is wrong before I came into full view. That moment where instinct fires and they turn and run. I learned that I couldn't make it stop. All of it. One look. I didn't ask for that power. I didn't practice it or want it. But there it was. absolute, irrevocable, and mine. And here is where I have to be honest with you in a way the stories never are. There were days I used it willingly. I want to tell you I was entirely innocent through all of it, that I never became anything frightening, that the power was always an accident, that I spent 3,000 years simply waiting to be killed and weeping at the injustice of my situation. But that would be a different kind of lie. The men who came, and they kept coming, soldiers and heroes and the merely curious, they came armed. They came to kill me. And after enough of them, something shifted. The grief was still there. The rage at Athena was still there. But underneath it, something else. A cold and quiet understanding that I was no longer someone who could be moved without consequence. I had been violated in a sacred space by a god who suffered nothing for it. I had been punished by the goddess I served. I had stripped all of my face, my body, my future, my community. And now these men arrived, shield in hand, and thought, what? That I would stand still? I stopped standing still. Is that monstrous? I genuinely don't know. I know that the statues in my cave were once men who meant to end me. I know that I do not fully mourn them. I know that somewhere between the priestess I was and the Gorgon I became, there is a line I crossed. And I cannot tell you with certainty exactly when or whether I had a choice. Perseus came the way they always came, with a mission, a goddess's blessing, a polished shield to avoid my gaze. He was young. He was scared beneath the bravado. I could hear it in his breathing. He was also going to kill me, and no amount of understanding the mechanics of heroism changes what that means when you are the monster in the story. I've thought about what I would have said to him if speaking had been an option. If there had been a version of this where we could simply talk. I think I would have told him, I know you're not wrong to be afraid of me. I know I am dangerous. I know what I've become is real, not just a slander the gods invented. But I also know what I was before I was this. And I know who made me into something you felt you had to kill. And it was not me. But Perseus didn't come to talk. Here's what no one tells you about the end of my story. From my blood, Pegasus was born. The winged horse, symbol of beauty and divine inspiration. The creature poets invoked before they wrote their greatest works. He came from me, from my death, from whatever it was I carried inside this body and the curse could not touch. I don't know what to do with that. I don't know if it's comfort or cruelty. That the most beautiful thing in the mythology grew from the worst thing that happened to me. I don't know if it's the god's way of balancing a ledger or just the universe's indifference to narrative justice. What I know is this. I was a girl who believed in something. I was wronged in a place I considered sacred by someone who faced no consequences. I was punished for surviving it. I became, over time, something genuinely frightening, and I will not stand here and pretend otherwise. And then I was killed by a boy who needed a trophy. The story you've been told calls that heroism. Maybe it was. Heroes need monsters, and had become monstrous enough to qualify. But I was not always this. And no one made that true except the gods who claimed to stand for justice, and couldn't be bothered to extend it to a 17-year-old girl on a cold stone floor. My name is Medusa, and now you know my version. Make of it what you will.